know it can be tricky to get young people to eat curries and vegetables and sort of getting a good variety into their diet, but this is one that I sort of tested on my young people that I work with in high schools. And I think a part of the lesson of it was about learning what each ingredient was as we were cooking it, learning to recognize the textures and smells. So while you could just buy a store-bought sort of curry powder, I think this is a really great way to introduce each of these flavors and textures so that they have some ownership over it. They can see the process and enjoy it all the more. So the first step I'm going to do is actually heat up my spices. So if you're doing this with young people, I would introduce each of those seeds separately. So I've got the coriander seeds first. I'm putting these into a dry pan. We want to heat these without any oil to start with. We will add some oil later, but this allows you to really smell the oils that are being released as they're heated. I really love using a mix of ground spices and seeds. It's just a point of difference, but if you have anyone that's texturally adverse, you may want to just use ground spices. So next we have some cumin seeds, yellow mustard seeds. So far all of those seeds are quite caramel in tone. I'm just going to add some darker brown, almost black mustard seeds. I really love the speckledy effect that this creates in the end product. So we can already start to smell those spices toasting, releasing their oils and starting to relax all of those flavors. So I'm just going to toast those for a couple more minutes before I add the ground spices. So as the heat is hitting these seeds, you can see them all bouncing and jumping around in the pan. So this is another opportunity to engage the young people in your life and give them a bit of a lesson about that. I'm going to add in some ground ginger, some ground turmeric, and some ground Kashmiri chili. So if you are a bit mindful of keeping this mild, you don't have to add as much chili. If you like it with a bit more bite, certainly add more. So we're getting a little bit of a smoke on, so I'm gonna add the coconut oil quite quickly. So we'll just make sure that all of those spices are now coated in that coconut oil. So we're using coconut oil so that we can keep this recipe vegan, so you sort of have got a broader audience when you're serving it. We're gonna put in our ginger. So we had some ground ginger, now we've got some fresh ginger and some fresh garlic. I'm gonna put in the onions almost immediately. Oh, so fragrant already. So I'm just gonna reduce the heat, let that sit for a little bit, keeping an eye on it, stirring it occasionally while I chop up the other vegetables. So I'm really happy with those onions. They're translucent and really fragrant. They've taken on a lot of the color from our spice mix there. So now we're gonna add our carrot and celery, stir fry that for a couple minutes, and then we will add our pumpkin and sweet potato. Now you could add potato if you wanted to. I quite like that this one has a variety of vegetables, so use whatever you really love. Root vegetables can take a little bit more cooking, so because we're going to leave this on a simmer for half an hour, that will be the perfect amount of time for all of those. So now our pumpkin and sweet potato. And then I'm going to cover that with a vegetable stock. So 1 litre should allow it to be fully submerged. And we're going to leave the lid off because we actually want some of this liquid to evaporate. So in a gentle simmer for about half an hour. We'll come back and then I'll show you what's next. So I'm really satisfied with how this curry has come together. We've reduced the liquid, I would say about 2/3. So we've still got a little bit of juice in there. And we're gonna put our chickpeas in. These are already cooked, rinsed and drained. So they really just need to be heated and stirred through. So I'm gonna give that a couple minutes just to make sure that when you bite into the curry, you don't have a cold chickpea. So 2 more minutes there. Gives me enough time to quickly tell you about these 2 delicious condiments, both yogurt based. We've just added a couple different ingredients which act as a cooling agent to this curry. And in terms of trying to entice our young people to eat all of their veggies and to try curry, these are a great sort of little transition. So we've got a banana and coconut raita here. And we've got a delicious cucumber and mint raita here. So we're gonna serve both of those. You could just dip your naan bread into it if you like, but at this stage, everything here is vegetarian and gluten-free, so we can keep it like that, serve those up together, and the chickpeas have just heated through. So some parts have sort of softened and then other parts are still whole, which is a beautiful way to eat it. You could serve this with rice if you wanted to, but I think you'll be just as satisfied with it as it is. This freezes really well if you have leftovers and you don't want to eat it the next day. There is our really easy chickpea and vegetarian curry.